We are continuing our daily Bible reading. We are in the book of Acts, and this week we are looking at Acts chapter 8. A couple of thoughts just to consider as you begin reading this week. In Acts chapter 8, if you remember back in chapter 7, Stephen died, and we find a man by the name of Saul being introduced to us in verse 58 of chapter 7. When they had driven him out of the city, they began stoning him, and the witnesses laid aside their robes at the feet of a young man named Saul. Now in chapter 8, verse 1, it says, Saul was in hearty agreement with putting him to death. We know that this is the Apostle Paul. So just take note of that point here, because as you get further along into the book of Acts, particularly into chapter 9, we're going to learn more about Paul. We're going to see his conversion, and we're going to see him really taking off later on in the book of Acts. And so that's just one thought to keep in mind here in Acts chapter 8. A second thought for you to keep in mind is the fact that there's more persecution that's taken place. There's persecution that has arisen against the church. That's what Luke says here in Acts chapter 8, verse number 1. Also take note that now the saints are being scattered throughout the regions of Judea and Samaria except the apostles. So the apostles are going to remain there in Jerusalem, but now the church is going to be scattered. And so that's something really important also to keep in mind. Something else I would just ask you to consider is the fact that persecution is something that took place quite a bit among God's people in the first century. Yet what we find in verse number 4 is that even though these individuals had been scattered, they went about preaching the word. And so nothing was going to stop the gospel. Yes, there were attacks against the people of God, but the people of God continued to remain faithful. They continued to do the will of God. That's really what we are called to do as well. We're going to go through difficult days, probably not to the point that they experience, even to the point of death. But the challenges that we do face, we just have to continue to move forward, continue to be involved in doing God's work and remembering the great gospel of Jesus Christ that we have and sharing that with others. Talk to you later. Take care, and God bless.